Welcome to the supernatural shore, to the liminal place where land meets sea, and to the magical world of the mythical Silkie. Have you ever wanted to swim in the deep blue sea with the seals? If so, perhaps you're descended for the seal folk, a mythical creature connected to the Atlantic grey seal that comes each autumn to the Isle of May to give birth to its pups. Except these mythical creatures, they hae a secret inside them. For if they take off their coats, they look like you or I. They're called Selkies or Silkies, for when the weather is bad, their coat, it rises, and when the weather is good, it lies flat and feels soft and silky. Nae stories are mair enchanting than that o' the seal folk. There are different theories about their origins, but I believe that they come from the Sami, a race of indigenous people from Finnmark in Scandinavia. The Sami were said to be great sorcerers who had powers of prophecy, healing, the ability to control the weather, and to be able to shapeshift into large sea animals such as seals. Well, the traditions of the Sami, they were carried by the Norsemen to Shetland and Orkney. And through time, they morphed into mythical creatures called the Finnfolk, a race of dark amphibious sorcerers, feared by mortal man, for they would capture humans and hold them captive in their secret, disappearing islands. They would wreck boats, cause drownings, and steal catches just for fun. Through time, these stories they morphed again into that of the gentle seal folk. And just like the mermaid, folk for the coasts and the islands believed in their existence, that they were real. Over the years, there were many documented sightings, skins on rocks, and naked people walking along the shore. This might have been the Arctic Inuit who ventured south during the Little Ice Age and were drying their skins after a long voyage. We will never know, but what we do know is that Silkies are shapeshifters. I like to think that as mortal women are so connected to the moon, that perhaps a Silkie maid's power to transform would be heightened during a full moon, when she could come ashore to dance upon the sands. Likewise, a Silkie man, his powers to transform would be heightened by the sun, and he could come ashore as it rose in the east to find a mortal lover afore it set in the west, and he had to return back to sea. I once met a Silkie man and can confirm that they are very handsome in human form, with their thick, wavy hair, pale skins, and shiny dark eyes. And they hae great seductive power, our women. There's an old ritual that if a woman wishes to find a Silkie lover, she must cry not one, not two, but 7 tears into the sea at high tide. And if she does so, why, her wish will come true. Likewise, Silkie maids Why, they're just as irresistible to mortal men who often use trickery to steal their skins so they can force them to become their wives. But a marriage under such terms is always doomed to fail. For nae good ever came of stealing anything that didn't belong to you, be that heart, soul, or sealskin. If any children are born of such a union, they hae the dark look of the seal, are said to be great swimmers, but are sometimes born with a condition called silky paw, webbed feet and fingers that always grows back no matter how much it is cut away. Often it is these children that find their mother's skin. When they give it back to her, she goes back to the sea, leaving them behind with a mortal, repentant father. One of the reasons why there is so many Selkie stories in Scotland is it gave great comfort to folk who had lost loved ones at sea to think that they had joined the seal folk, that they one day might see them again if they come ashore and took off their skins. In those days they also believed that they were fallen angels, and that a great curse would befall anyone who killed a seal. The story I'd like to share with you is my version of a traditional tale for the north of Scotland called The Seal Killer. It was only during the hard times that folk from Scotland would kill a seal to make use of its skin or blubber, for they feared a great misfortune would happen if they took the life of a seal. But there was once a man called James for Caithness, and he didn't pay any heed to this old belief. He lived his life as he pleased, caring nae for the company nor opinion of others. He made no secret of the fact that he hated seals, for according to him they ripped his nets and they stole his catch. The only thing he did heed was that he ne'er fished on a Friday, believing that this was a day when the sea was at its cruelest. 6 days out of 7, like his father and grandfather afore him, he would tack out his boat far past the skerries, and he would sing an ancient Sami tune to call to the seals. Yo, 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 yo. Oh, yo, 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 oh, yo, yo. He'd been taught that when he was but a wee bairn. And as he sung the Sami song, the seals, why they would gather round to listen. Not many people ken this, but seals, they love music, especially the fiddle. And if you call to them, they will call back to you. That is one of the reasons that folk believed that they were lost fishermen or fallen angels, for they were surely more than just animals. One day while James was out hunting, he sung the song, and a great grey seal, she broke the surface of the water. He wasted no time and stabbed it in the breast. But before he could capture it, it dove beneath the waves, while he cursed out loud. No, a cause he had lost the seal. There was plenty more of them he could kill. A cause he had lost that knife. That meant something to him. It was his father's. Full dismay, he took his boat and rode hame. He climbed the cliff path to his hoose and poured hisself a large drammy whisky, then another, then another. And then he fell asleep in his chair in front of the fire. He was awoken a few hours later by a loud knocking at his door. When he opened it, there stood a tall stranger with a long black coat. "Are you the seal killer?" he asked. "I said James. "What do you want?" "Then I've a job for you. Come with me." "Oh, can I no wait till morning, man?" said James. "No," said the tall stranger. "You must come now. You will be well rewarded." Still half drunk, he pulled on his oilskin and went out into the stormy night that lay siege to the land. With the stranger, he was so strong, he pulled him up onto the back of a large black stallion with just one hand. And they rode off, the horse only stopping when they reached the edge of a high cliff. They dismounted. And afore James kent what was happening, the stranger, he wrapped his arms tightly round him and threw himself off the cliff. Afore they hit the water, the stranger put his lips over James's mouth and blew into his lungs. Down, 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 down below they went. James gied up struggling, for the stranger was too strong, and he feared he was already dead. Or perhaps it was just a drunken dream. Whatever it was, he was there on the seabed, and he was breathing underwater. Well, the stranger, he led him into a magnificent chamber where there, on an ornate silver bed, lay the most beautiful woman that he had e'er seen, except her skin was a strange blue colour. And it was then that he noticed his knife sticking out her breast. His heart almost stopped. The stranger spoke. "This is the queen of the Selkie people. You stabbed her, and the wound is slowly killing her. She can be saved if you show deep remorse and remove the blade." Well, James fell to his knees. For the first time in his life, he was truly sorry for what he had done, and he begged the queen's forgiveness. He gently pulled out the blade, and as if by magic, the wound began to close. Her colour changed from the strange blue to a pale grey. She opened her eyes and stared at James. He gasped. It was as if she had looked right into his soul, and a strange awe came over his body. The stranger touched his arm and said it was time to go. But before he set him free, he must promise that he would never kill another seal. "I promise I'll never kill another seal," said James. The stranger gave him a box and told him not to open it till he was safely home. In the blink of an eye, he found himself washed up on the shore aside his boat, wet and weary for all that had happened that night. He climbed the cliff path to his house. Once inside, he opened the box. Tears ran down his cheeks, for it contained white money, silver coins, the treasure of the seal folk. Later that day, he buried the knife aside his father's grave and went out and bought himself a fine fiddle with the silver coins. He kept his promise and never killed another seal. 6 days out of 7, he would row his boat out past the skerries, and he would play the fiddle to a large audience of grey seals. He lived a quiet life, except that every full moon he could be seen dancing upon the sands with a beautiful woman who had a large scar upon her breast. It was said that when James died, 1,000 seals came to mourn his loss at the shore. And that is the story of the seal killer. Sadly, the numbers of Atlantic grey seals are in great decline, so we must do everything we can to protect them and remember them through these ancient stories. If you're ever out walking and see a seal on the 34th, sing to them. You never know, they might just sing back to you.